For an adult man, I have a whole lot of favorite TV shows that are cartoons. Topping the list, of course, is Transformers, because there is no other cartoon better than Transformers. If you insult Optimus Prime, I will hurt you. And I still cry every time in the movie, not the new ones that Michael Bay destroyed my childhood with, but the original 1985 Transformers movie. I still cry every time Optimus Prime dies. Even though I know it's coming, I know it's going to happen every time that blasted Stan Bush song comes on, and it's just bad news. Another of my favorite cartoons is a newer one that lasted about a season because it was on Nickelodeon, but the show really, kids wouldn't have gotten the jokes, let's put it that way. And it's called Invader Zim. Now this show is about a completely incompetent little green alien who forces his way into getting assigned to be the lead invader of Earth. Along the way, he's given a little robotic friend who, let's just say the little robotic friend is made from spare parts and doesn't exactly function correctly, named Gur. It's a lot of fun. One of the very first scenes is you have Zim and Gur in their little spaceship, and they're flying from the Urkin Armada. Zim is a member of the Urkin race, where they're not the brightest of alien species anyways. They decide their leaders based on who is the tallest. They're not smart. Yes, Dad, I know you still have me by half an inch. I'm waiting, though. I'm waiting. Soon. Oh, he already has. So one of the very first scenes in this show, Zim and Gur are in their spaceship, and Zim says something along the lines of, "We're going to Earth to bring doom." And so Gur says, "I know, let's sing the doom song." Now, the doom song is a very complicated song. It goes something like this. Doom, doom, do, doom, doom, do, do, doom, doom, doom. The next scene is a cut that says, 6 months later. Gur is still singing the doom song, and Zim is a drooling mass of rage. The text this week made me think of the doom song. We're starting to get in the time of our church year where, doom is kind of the name of the game. Amos paints a kind of depressing picture of this. Although you do have to love the imagery. The day of the Lord is like a man who's running from a lion, only to run straight into a bear. It illustrates the futility of trying to avoid the Lord's day. The other one, something that's not very practical for us, but actually was a problem back in the day. You go home to rest from the day and lean against the wall, and lo, you are bitten by a snake. I don't think most of us would have experienced that one, but it's not pretty pictures. There will be no light. It will just be darkness. Next week's not much better. The reading from Zephaniah is, there's a bit in the Requiem Mass that after Vatican II they cut out because it was too depressing, called the Dies Irae. It comes straight from Zephaniah, and it basically reads, "O day of wrath, O day of vengeance." The whole thing basically just talks about how God's going to clobber everyone. And it's doomy. And this week, Jesus isn't even very happy seeming. This section of Matthew that our gospel text is from is part of this big, long discussion on what's going to happen when everything ends. Jesus somewhat offhandedly says, oh yeah, that temple's really nice, but it's all going to be torn down in 3 days. And the disciples said, Jesus, what? What do you... The temple? 3 days? When's this going to happen? And Jesus also comfortingly says, well, nobody really knows. I don't know. Nobody on earth knows. The Father knows, but he's not telling. Now, wrap that around your Trinitarian head for a minute. The Father knows when something's going to happen, but the Son doesn't. But this is why on Trinity Sunday I just get a headache. Now, Jesus continues on. He's talking about all these things that might happen and how miserable this time is going to be. And then when he finally starts to get to the time when, the disciples are starting to wonder, okay, yeah, but when's this going to happen? Jesus tells them this parable. It's 10 young women getting ready for a wedding. Now, we do weddings, they're usually like an afternoon and an evening, and that's about all you get for a wedding, right? Ancient Near Eastern culture, they would call us a really lame group of partiers. Because when they did the ancient weddings, you had at least 2 parties, and they usually lasted a whole weekend. So first, they would gather at the bride's house for the day party, and they'd all be hanging out, and then the groom would leave and go to his house and get it ready for the night party. And 2 parties in the same day. I mean, we're talking an event, right? So the way it worked, the groom would get his house ready, and the bride would just kind of hang out. And because this was the night party, there would have to be a procession, and they didn't have street lights. Now, if you've ever walked at night down a street with no street lights, it's challenging. So they had these women, basically their job was to be the streetlights. They would walk with the procession and light the way so that everyone knew where they were going, because, they're going from one party to another. And if you know anything from the wedding of Cana, they're going from one party to another. Now, in this particular instance, the groom was running late. Apparently, his house needed a lot of cleaning. So he's taking some time. And he's taking some time, and he's taking some time, so that the young women who were supposed to light the way fell asleep. It's a perfectly sensible thing to do. Someone's going to yell when it's going to happen, so falling asleep's no big deal. The problem was, when the yell happened around midnight, some of them had oil and some of them didn't. Has anyone ever worked with an oil lamp before? Do you know how useless they are when there's no oil in them? And do you know how they burn oil reasonably quickly? Especially, if you've got one of the itty bitty ones, those will last for a minute. But if you're looking to light a street with this, it's going to go through oil reasonably fast. And they still have to get from the bride's house to the groom's house with a whole bunch of partygoers. So the ones that didn't bring oil say, hey, y'all who brought oil, hook us up, help us out a little bit. And they go, well, okay, here's the problem. So we brought enough oil for us, and if we share our oil with you, then about halfway to the house, we're going to run out of oil. So, go and buy some. Now, you might think it's midnight, nobody's going to be open. Did I mention that this is a multiple party situation? The whole town was awake. This was an event, remember? So, finding someone to buy oil from isn't the problem. Finding someone to buy oil from in the time between the guys yelling the bridegroom's on the way and the bridegroom gets here, that's a problem. I can tell you there's been a couple times that I had to run home for something before church, and the whole time I'm going, I hope there's not an officer, I hope there's not an officer, I hope there's not an officer, because I need to make it back here for church. Because, you forget things, and it happens. So these young women, they go and they get their oil, only they're late. And they end up missing the party because the groom locked the door on them. And at this point, everyone goes, wait, what? The people who heard this parable would be like, why would you lock out someone just for being late? This doesn't make any sense. So this is meant to be a slightly odd thing that Jesus is illustrating because he's illustrating the importance of being ready. And sometimes it can be hard for us to be ready for Jesus. Because while the young women waiting for the groom waited, a couple hours, we've been waiting almost 2,000 years. It's easy for us to fall asleep. So we start to act like Jesus isn't going to come back. We start to lose a sense of urgency as believers that the day of the Lord is coming. When hopefully a little angel robot starts singing the doom song at us. I would love that. God, could you arrange that? When you come back, could you have a little angel robot sing the doom song to us? It really is adorable. If Jesus came back tomorrow, are you ready? Do you have the oil to be ready for Jesus to come back? Next week and the week after starts to tell us how we can be ready for this. It tells us about things like what to do with a whole bunch of silver, or the one for 2 weeks from now. Oh, hey, I know you. You didn't do anything, but I know you. See, we have these things that we're told how to get ready. And of course, that's next couple weeks. But how do you feel right now? If Jesus came back right now, are we ready to meet him? Are we prepared? Or are we out of oil? When the day of the Lord comes, will we make it to the party on time?